What's up, y'all? Welcome to the show, gang. Good to have you guys. We do not have our usual primary host. We have a primary host and a secondary host. I'm the secondary host. Brady, I think you're hearing this because you were already in the comments. Brady is going to do I'll just describe it as a very naturey trip. I think Brady told the world that there would be some canoes involved. So I think that means a boating accident is a potential. So, thoughts and prayers to Brady. If he has a boating accident, we want it to be the right type of boating accident. What's up, guys? I'll say hi to Hurley first because Hurley, I was just listening to your show from, it came out yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was listening to it this morning, and it's a good one. I think we'll probably chat about some of the stuff you covered, but loving your show, man. So keep it up with that.
Thanks, man. Yeah, good to be here. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Isaiah, it looks like you got blue blocking glasses on. Is that what I'm seeing there?
Yeah, I'm trying to continue to evolve into Jack Dorsey since the comment happened last time. So I did notice that there was a tweet where Jack and I have the same grounding shoes. So I'm just continuing to evolve. Satoshi shirt next time.
It's very Hunter S. Thompson. I like it.
Yeah.
Just no more haircuts.
The beard would have to get a lot longer.
I like that you also referenced Jack Dorsey. You're trying to mimic him in looks, but not in his views on store value versus medium exchange debate. Is that correct?
Well, you know that between the two of us, we're worth over $1 billion.
My favorite comment along those lines is I'm a hockey guy, as some people know, and someone made the joke is like, what's the highest scoring brother combo in NHL history? And they says the answer is Wayne and Brent Gretzky. But I think Brent Gretzky has no career points. He just happens to be Wayne Gretzky's brother.
Poor Brent.
That is perfect. Yep, that's it.
Also, shout out.
Not on my side.
Yeah. Shout out to the chat. We've got someone saying, thank you, Brady, for the mushroom coffee recommendation. That's good. Shout out, Adam, there. You're making use of it. I think that was only last week, right? So that was a quick purchase by you. And Q, what's up, man? You pumped for the chat, or how you doing today?
I'm great, man. It's Friday. No complaints. Bitcoin's on sale. It's a good day.
Friday before Labor Day weekend. Although, Hurley, you're in Canada. What does Labor Day mean to Canadians?
The same. We celebrate the same thing as you. We also labor.
And
I like someone called it Proof of
day?
Work Day. Who was that? Was that someone in Swan called it Proof of Work Day? I was like, I like that. I'm going to keep that.
Yeah. So, and it's on the same day for Canadians.
Same day. Yeah.
Oh,
I noticed one thing I noticed, you guys do not have many holidays. I thought you guys, you don't take anything off. You don't take you have what? Christmas and
that's a Swan policy.
I'm always like, P, I'm like, yeah, tomorrow's a holiday. He's like, no, it's not. And even this time I told P, I was like, oh, Monday's a holiday. He's like, no, what are you talking about? I'm like, dude, it's Labor Day. I know you guys celebrate this one.
That's Labor Day is definitely a holiday. That's universal.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe Canada. Me having worked for a big bank for many years, I think of the real holidays as the bank holidays.
Yeah.
But I think most corporations follow that same kind of stuff. Schools are a little different. I think the school is based on, at least being in the New York area, they've incorporated holidays from other backgrounds and stuff that were not the case when I was a kid, but and they're definitely not bank holidays, but now they incorporate them. So depends if your lens is corporate versus school or something else, but it's hard to keep track of what's an official. Look at Brady.
Shout out to Brady for editing and producing the show while on a canoe trip.
Look at that. He's got a watchful eye.
He first slacked me and I put it up, and then he just wrote it in the chat because I didn't put it up fast. I didn't put it up fast enough, I guess.
I love it. All right, let's get into it. So I would say not a massively earth-shattering week for news, but there's definitely plenty to talk about. It is the last 2 weeks of August. You have to remember that. People do take vacations. They're, even politicians are probably not trying to do that much at the end of August. People who run big firms, there's just not as much happens. People take vacations and things are a little slower in August. I personally think that might explain some of Bitcoin lagging in price here. But let's start with that. Anyone have a take on Bitcoin's latest slump in price, which is really just 12-13% below the recent all-time high?
Yeah, we're so weak with dips now, right? It's crazy. This is we're like retesting kind of the previous high, right? Basically, or their high from earlier this year. So it's yeah, I mean, it does seem like Bitcoin is weak I mean, I think you guys talked about it last week that Bitcoin is like usually weak in August and September, right? Is that all markets or is that just Bitcoin? Because it looks like the S&P is at an all-time high.
Yeah, I think you're referencing the Bitwise chart, the seasonality piece, but
Yeah.
yeah, it typically is pretty light for August and September. August definitely being negative, and then September being fairly light as well. So,
Yeah.
but after that, if you look, October, November,
and
December, fairly strong. So, kind of to Q's point, it's,
yeah, we call it October and Moonvember, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's one of those things. Yeah, to Q's point, you look at this in the show's had a lot of conversation of all the different bullish sentiment, but it's like, okay, has the narrative changed? The answer is no. Like, there's a lot of good things that are still out there. And I was trying to think of the tweet. Was it the Strive folks that are getting close to their vote and then saying how many days before they unlock to start buying a healthy amount of Bitcoin?
Yeah, 750 million, I think, or something, and they're aiming for the autumn. So yeah, I mean the treasury company buys aren't stopping, but like it does seem like long-term holders, and I mean this happens every bull market, but long-term holders in whales have been selling, right? So that obviously is going to kind of be the battle between the supply and demand for the bull. But if you want to go to this chart, John, this is like the long-term holder realized profit, and it's basically the highest point since 2017, 18. It looks like here. But one thing that's interesting about this one is the base of the black here on the right, which is kind of quite a bit thicker than the other one. So it looks like the selling started quite a bit earlier for long-term holders, and kind of in the run up to 100K. So, I mean, that might mean that that their selling runs out a little bit earlier, and we kind of go on a run. But what do you guys think about this?
Yeah, I think this one also plays nicely with another image that we're going to show, or just a tweet really about some of the whales selling. And there's this kind of theory that it's kind of impossible to confirm this theory definitively, but there's this theory that maybe some of the and it's going to be mixed, right? There's not one answer, but some of the whales might be selling because they've guaranteed yachts for their great grandkids, and whatever, that's fine. But some of them might be selling and actually just diversifying the way they hold Bitcoin, maybe for custody reasons, for inheritance planning reasons, and maybe they're rotating back into the ETF. And we have to remember that I already listed one of the benefits, but it's just diversification. If you own 2 Bitcoin, you're not really thinking, let me split up this 2 Bitcoin in, this much in an ETF, this much here, this much in a multi. You're not doing that calculus. If you own thousands of Bitcoin, we're talking about OGs here, then you probably are doing that calculus. You're saying, hey, I don't want a catastrophic failure for all of my Bitcoin. I'll put 20% of it in this format, 20% in this format. And then Isaiah, I think you want to chat a little bit about not just diversification of custody, but there are some benefits, financialization benefits to owning the ETF that I think you've heard directly from clients.
Yeah, the one thing that I've heard for a handful of people is if they want to take loans or use margin, they can go to a brokerage, whether it's Interactive Brokers, Schwab, et cetera, and they can get margin a lot less expensive than doing the traditional kind of Bitcoin-backed loans where rates are at today. Maybe this changes in the future. And depending on how they want to use that Bitcoin or how they kind of mentally think about it, yes, we all know it's not real Bitcoin. They have a dollar claim to it. They can't actually redeem and get back to that Bitcoin without a sale, but it allows them to have exposure dollar-wise to the asset, borrow, and maybe acquire other things or use it for life. And so I think, yeah, there's a number of different people. BitPayne talked about it, but there's others that have looked at this and said, hey, if someone wants to borrow, this is actually going to save them a lot, and they can actually get more leverage by doing it that way. And I think there's something to that, because those are conversations that I've had and I've heard from people asking and trying to understand how they want to use it. And it's going to just depend on the individual and how much they value owning the underlying asset and being able to take self-custody versus, having it be custodial.
Yeah, I think a lot of these whales aren't. It's not like, I mean, if they were a whale and they've been a believer in Bitcoin for a long time, I don't think they're selling 100% of their stack, right? Like, if you look at this total here, like the band at the bottom, the darker orange, that is people with 10,000 to 100,000 Bitcoin. So that's a lot of Bitcoin, and they're like their net worth is so heavily skewed towards Bitcoin that, I mean, they need to, everyone needs to spend money to live and kind of fund their lifestyle. So, and we're talking about people with just like so much money, we can't even really fathom how much money they have. So it's like,
Yeah.
and then so it makes sense for them to kind of like, take away from some of that self custody risk and kind of, move some into an ETF or whatever it is. But
Yeah, if you're moving 10% of your entire Bitcoin holding into something like this, guaranteeing $1 billion for yourself and then still letting another 10, 15, 20 billion just continue to rip in Bitcoin and then diversify out of it, so you can theoretically live off of, I don't know, say $1 billion. I think you're sitting in a pretty position and you have that luxury to do so, versus unless John is sitting on a stack that he won't tell us about. I don't think any of us are anywhere near that type of a position to be able to just say, shaving off 10% of my Bitcoin holdings and putting it into an ETF or some other custodial, some other type of custodial account to live off of tax-free. That's not something that retail is able to do, but retail feels the effects of that in a way that, unfortunately, it feels like, oh my God, price of Bitcoin has crashed. I also think there's a little bit of like sensitivity to the news. Last week, we saw a quick little pump back up to 117K when there were rumors flying around that, oh, Powell's going to cut rates sooner. And then when that flip-flop, we immediately saw the price drop down. So I think there's a lot of sensitivity going on around news right now.
yeah, I wonder if some of that is fear of people, almost like flashbacks to 2021, and people afraid that we've double topped or whatever it is, and we're, it's like that imminence of, because that was a really rough, crazy bear market in 2022, and I think there's probably a little bit of leftover fear, maybe just from like a retailer just perspective outside of the whale selling, that kind of cascades whenever the price dumps a little bit. People are like, oh, this is it, it's all over.
Yep, there's PTSD there
Yeah.
for sure. But even if you go back to looking at like charts like HODL waves, right, about looking at how long people have held, I just pulled it up prior to us jumping on, and still 61% is held for over a year. And again, that number's been higher. It's been north of 70. So we definitely have seen some of the selling. You've seen that happen, but it's not like there's a rush to the exits. You're not seeing that move quite as aggressively. And so, yeah, to call a top here, I think is premature, foolish, and
top.
No, I completely agree. There's way too many bullish headwinds, and especially considering how much the price has gone up with interest rates being high in the U.S., which is crazy, right? That's why when Powell made that, he didn't even make an announcement. He was just slightly dovish and was like, "Oh, we might need to reassess," and then the price jumped up, right? It's because everyone's like waiting for those rates to come down, for some money to start flowing again.
And it's not like in September they're not going to cut rates.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's still like 87% chance or something like that. But just to round this out, unless you had something else to say about it, John, you have some more thoughts?
Just one kind of related thing. I did think there was a funny tweet out there. Some of the people who were like, oh, why are these whales selling? It's ridiculous, or something like that. It's like, you think it's ridiculous what an OG who's held Bitcoin for 10 years is doing what you plan to do in 10 years.
Yeah. When it's a million, we'll be the ones that are shaving off a little bit.
You only live once. You don't just hoard money and swim around in your money like Scrooge McDuck. So yeah, I think it makes sense. It's explainable. Like overall, I'm not saying the Galaxy one was a little hard to explain in terms of like, why would someone dump 9 billion of Bitcoin that quickly? So like there's nuances that are hard to explain, but the idea of people cashing in, so to speak, their value that they've accumulated over literally a decade or more does make sense. Kind of related to that, I want to just put this one out there for your guys' thoughts. I have the belief that, so there's these two camps, right? Of Bitcoin cycles are going to repeat. green, 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 red, blow off top, like all this stuff, right? Or are we in like grind it higher, lower vol, stair step higher, dips are only like 20%? Like those are the two kind of camps, right? I'm starting to be more in the latter camp. I still believe that it's Bitcoin. Adoption events could happen. We could still go to 100, 200K like relatively easily, right? That's obviously possible. But one thing that I just realized recently, which I think is different now versus 4 years ago, I feel like it was super common in 2021 for people to just be like, I am not selling anything ever. And even as that whole thing went down, most people did not sell, that at least that I know, that I talked to. Nowadays, whether it's friends, coworkers, all the clients that we talk to at Swan, which is like literally hundreds and thousands of people, way more people are expressing to me that they plan to trim some as the price gets higher. So number one, I want to know if you guys are kind of having the same types of conversations with people. But then number two, if that's the case, that does support like the grind it higher thesis, because as we get closer to 140, 150, I think there are people out there who are like, okay, take some chips off the table. And this also has been expressed as like the Wall Street is here thesis. This is how Wall Street people think. It's like rebalancing in the shorter term. They're not completely selling their Bitcoin, right? It's not a short-term trade, but like they will take some profits on a quarterly or semi-annual basis, whatever. So that's my latest take of like maybe the grind higher with lower vol camp is looking more and more realistic.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I remember these type of conversations starting in March of last year with amongst like at different Bitcoin meetups and events. You'd hear the conversation of like, I think this cycle, I'm going to take some off the top and then I'll rebuy on the next dip. I think it's like you see two investor theses played out. To your point, John, I absolutely agree that Wall Street has its own way of sort of trading and taking profits and growing and shaving positions. But then you have the retail side that wants to maximize its returns and maximize the amount of Bitcoin they're going to walk away with. I think ultimately what moves the market is not retail. It's the big money in Wall Street that will kind of dictate the price action, because they have the most capital to push the prices to up or down based on what they're doing, more so than if retail decides they want to take profit. So I think we're entering that phase where we are kind of at the behest of the decisions of Wall Street.
Yeah, and all the long-term holders or whales that are selling, that's getting eaten up. Like the supply is getting eaten up. Like if we didn't have the demand that we had through the ETFs and through the treasury companies, buying massive amounts of Bitcoin, you can imagine that the price would be a lot more hit, right? So it's like they're just being gobbled up. There's like I think it's what Saylor said, it's like a redistribution, right? That's really what's happening. And this is, I love this take from VJ to kind of round this out, because a lot of this always brings up paper Bitcoin conspiracies and all this kind of stuff, that the price is being suppressed. And VJ just says the price is stalled because a number of whales have hit their magic number and are unloading. This is healthy. Their supply is finite. Their selling is required for the full monetization of Bitcoin. Massive blocks of supply with enormous purchasing power are being distributed to the population. This cycle is one of the greatest monetization events in history. I just love that take, because it's like, we actually do want to see coins just distributed from these massive whales that hold hundreds of thousands of coins, right? It's like, if you look at this chart, that's like a pretty big percentage of the supply is still being held by big, holders. So we want to see that spread out to those top kind of green and blue at the top there, to kind of the general population as much as possible, as long as these treasury companies and Michael Saylor doesn't eat it all up first, right? That's why we gotta share the message with people about why they need to start buying Bitcoin and self-custody it.
Yeah. All right. Before we move on, Isaiah, do you have any quick comment about, do you have people saying to you, I do plan to take profits, trim a little bit, or is it people saying, no, I'm going to borrow against it when we rally? Like how would you characterize it?
I've heard more people say borrow. I think I've had a lot of conversations with people wanting to figure out how to borrow against their Bitcoin. Hey, do you have loan products? What do you think about loan products? What do you think about this specific loan product? And trying to evaluate the different options that are out there. And I think what's going to more likely happen is people are going to take loans when Bitcoin goes at a much higher level. And then those people are going to get margin called and end up with a lot less Bitcoin because they don't want to sell it. There's nothing wrong with selling Bitcoin. If you hold most of your wealth in Bitcoin, you probably will and should sell it. And I think the idea that you should never sell Bitcoin is, to me, rather silly. And there's like certain points of people that will say they'll never sell it. And then surprise, surprise, they do end up selling it. So, don't let someone else make that decision. I think if you get to the point similar to like the OGs, like if you can get to the point where it's life-changing money and makes your family or your life or whatever, like that's the whole purpose of owning that asset. It's not to die with the most Bitcoin. And so, yeah, I've heard a lot more people say they want to take loans. Unfortunately, I think most people are going to take loans at the wrong time in the cycle and get burned again and end up with a lot less Bitcoin. And that'll be unfortunate. And it'll be, PTSD and scars, just like the 2021 bear market was, where they'll be like, I can't be in this, blah, blah, blah. I'm still in the camp personally of everyone's been lulled to sleep of this grind higher, and the ETFs and Wall Street are making everything less volatile. I think we see a lot more volatility still. And I think the volatility is to the upside first, but then we'll rear its head and be on the downside. And I think just in general with any risk asset, a lot of stuff, I think volatility has been dampened, and I think that comes back personally. But I think we go a lot higher first. So.
Okay. Love it. All right, let's move on to where do we go from here? Interesting chart. We won't spend too much time on it, but someone posted this week. Long-term trends here. I think it's not going to be a shock to Bitcoiners, but it's foreign central banks now hold, this is percentage basis. So the treasuries they hold as a percentage of foreign reserves compared to the gold they hold as a percentage of foreign reserves. Those two have now crisscrossed for the first time since 1996. So it looks like no horizontal lines on this, but it's around like 25%. So now the percentage of U.S. treasuries held by these foreign central banks is dipping roughly below 25%, whereas gold is increasing above 25%. These entities are choosing to go with a neutral reserve asset. The person who posted this, Tavi Costa, Isaiah informed us that he is a pretty hardcore gold guy. Obviously for us, this just enforces the idea that as treasuries are being less and less frequently chosen as a reserve asset, and we're not saying people are going to fire sale their treasuries, but over time, like just look at this trend. It is a gradual decreasing since what, like 2014, 2015, something like that. And now I'm just hearing Luke Groman's voice literally inside my head, highlighting that this is when China publicly, they made some statement that it was just always funny to me how cut and dry it was. They're like, it's no longer in China's national interest to acquire more treasuries, something like that. And again, they hold some. They can't just dump their treasuries because that's counterproductive for them. But the trend is pretty clear when you look at that chart. So any other takeaways you guys have from this one?
I just want to highlight, Adam just posted this, and I think this is this is my fundamental belief in this, and it has been for a while, that this does, in my opinion, signal a loss in confidence in U.S. treasuries. China has for about 3 years been a net seller of U.S. treasuries, and I think the global trend is signaling that as well. And I think this will only get more and more exacerbated, especially with no clear certainty on what our Federal Reserve is going to do with interest rates. And if interest rates go down, I don't anticipate more foreign countries being enticed to buy treasuries. If the opposite was true and interest rates were looking like they were going to go up, I could see this reversing, but I don't anticipate interest rates going up. And as a result, I don't think more countries are going to be clamoring to get their hands on U.S. debt when they can just hold other assets like gold or Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been talked at length, but really, the theft of Russian assets, you see that spike in gold, like that signal to everyone around the globe, like, hey, if you get on the wrong side of the US, your savings can be stolen. And I think that that's an important kind of big moment. And it was highlighted then, and it's been highlighted for years and years. And I brought it up in tons of conversations. but like that's going to play out over and over and over again, because that's a lesson that you don't forget. And then there's certain things that's like, yep, joking like with young kids, like that's a core memory. This is one of those memories that won't go away. People are going to remember that. And yeah, gold is historically been that asset, but you'll see more and more people, and you'll see countries like El Salvador that'll say, yeah, maybe we'll try the Bitcoin thing as well. So,
can we throw up the chart one more time, Hurley?
Yeah.
And Q, you go ahead, and then I have one more point to make.
I just on Isaiah's point, when P and I used to host Bitcoin Magazine Live a cycle ago, before Russia invaded Ukraine, Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping were consistently meeting with the former president of Iran. And I just continuously used to bang this drum of, there is a reason why these two countries that are either our allies or could potentially swing in the exact opposite direction are meeting with a country that has been cut off from the SWIFT system, that has not had access to US capital or US dollars for decades now. And then a few months later, Russia gets cut off. I fundamentally believe, to Isaiah's point, like, countries have taken notice of what has happened to Russia. They're starting to look at and find alternatives. You have Saudi Arabia and China completing trade for oil in Chinese yuan. You have Russia accepting their own currency, gold. They've openly said, we'll accept Bitcoin for our oil and gas. You're going to see this shift slowly materialize over the next couple decades. And I think as more and more countries start to look at other vehicles, Bitcoin will naturally find its way in those conversations. And I think that does lead to a medium of exchange conversation much faster than I think some people think.
Could be. The point that I just wanted to make on this one was look at, so I kind of wish this chart started even earlier, but it is kind of interesting that it spikes up in 1970. I feel like there's got to be something to be said about petrodollar agreements at that time. There's like a spike up in the early 70s, then a spike down to the mid 70s, in the mid 70s, but then it starts to rise again. I feel like petrodollar agreements must be at play there. Then it drops pretty precipitously to 1980. But then from there, it's like a big rise over time, like big grinding higher. And I feel like what you have to acknowledge on this chart is what interest rates were. They kind of peaked around 1980 on treasuries. So if you're getting into treasuries at that time and you have gradually falling interest rates for like 20 years, which is basically what we had or longer, you're making money on the bonds. Like that was the era of the 60-40 portfolio making sense. Bonds providing kind of like a hedge against equities as like the ballast of your portfolio. It did make sense for decades. But now most of us would argue that that's not the world we're going to be in anymore. And Isaiah highlighted some of this, but if we have a world where yields are no longer falling, you're now at risk if you get on the wrong side of the US for, your reserve asset is no longer your reserve asset. I think sanctions are just a lot more commonly used nowadays. So if that's not really the world we're in anymore, then it kind of makes sense that like this is a break in the trend. So my guess would be that blue line continues falling further and the yellow line continues moving higher, and we might be adding an orange line to this chart at some point.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I everything you just said, I fundamentally agree with. And to Hurley, if you want to throw the chart back on, like, as an Iranian, I can tell you point blank, like that 78 in the blue line where it just like drops down coincides exactly with the oil crisis in the late 70s, early 80s. And then, of course, we figure out all the right oil deals, interest rates start to shoot up, and then we turn our economy around and make bonds the most lucrative thing to own, which is why you saw this steady rise. And I actually love the fact that this chart started in 1970, because it just is a nice little homage to what happened in 1971.
Totally.
Okay. Excellent. I think we covered that one. Let's move on to, we have to talk about the Fed a little bit here. There's obviously some drama, some political drama surrounding the Fed, but we have to talk about this one. So tons of headlines in traditional financial media. There is a Fed governor named Lisa Cook, who I might not get this all 100% correct. I'm not following every detail, but is attempting to be fired or removed from her position. I don't know exactly where it stands. She is fighting it. I don't know the methods she's using, but basically there is drama here because the Trump administration is trying to remove her. She has historically been someone who, again, the Fed is supposed to be independent. I think anyone who lives in reality knows that it's not so independent. These people get appointed by particular political parties, and they probably will be more loyal to the people who appointed them. And it has come to light that this woman, it's alleged, but from what I've seen, it looks like pretty solid evidence. And I don't know that she has even claimed that she didn't do it, denied it. But apparently she claimed 2 homes as her primary residence. And now the Trump administration is going after her for that. My take on this, which I think is the balanced take, is this political? Obviously, yes. You can't deny that. But did she do nothing wrong? There is something very uncomfortable knowing that a Fed governor who gets to vote on interest rates actively violated a law that allows her to get a lower interest rate on her house. And it's like, if you get caught doing that, also, I'm not naive here, right? Like, I'm sure there's plenty of politicians and central bankers who've done way worse than this and didn't get caught. But if you do get caught doing something like that, it just feels like a slap in the face to everyday Americans to be like, oh, she can do it. Fine for her, no penalty whatsoever. But again, I will also admit, I think it is political. I think it also serves a nice end for the Trump administration. That's the summary of the kind of news headlines and my little take on it for everyone. I think the bigger picture here is that I think the Fed will succumb to more political influence as time goes on. And I think that is going to be the case regardless of which political party is in office. Trump might be a little more brash and brazen about it, sure. But in this world of debt to GDP being super high, it's like nothing stops this train, fiscal dominance, all this kind of stuff. And then you realize that the Fed's main goal is probably smooth functioning of the treasury markets and allowing the government to issue debt. Then these things are not that surprising. So, look for the Fed to be more political going forward. And I think this is evidence of that. What do you guys think?
I think punishing criminals is a good thing. You should universally do that across the board. There should be consequences for bad actors. There's going to be people that get away with it, sure. 100% is political, but yeah, people should be punished, and it shouldn't be a red versus blue type of thing. It should just be, hey, we have rules and laws, and you don't get special privilege because of you sitting in a certain spot. And so, yeah, it is, to your take, John, it is a slap in the face. And there's so many times where it's like that. There's plenty of other things that we could highlight where it's like, we know that they're lying. They know that we know that they're lying. And, you just play that out forever. And it's like, it's just disrespectful. So.
Yeah. I mean, to really highlight how political this is, when this was brought up in our pre-show, I thought we were talking about Susan Menarez, the CDC director, who's refusing to step down at first, until I realized oh no, there are 2 current high level federal positions that are having this sort of back and forth political joust where they've been asked or fired and they're refusing to go. So this is just the absolute chaos of DC, which I'm here for. This is my favorite reality TV show. It's better than any Housewives show in existence. That said, I wholeheartedly agree. And, in the same vein, when will we finally get rid of, the ability for Congress to trade in the stock market? Because to me, it's the same thing. It has different impacts, but it is the exact same thing. They have the ability to manipulate the market in their favor and take advantage of it in a way that leaves the rest of us unable to have those advantages.
Yeah, who needs fictional TV when you have this kind of entertainment?
Dude, this is the best reality TV. Full stop.
Yeah, I don't know if we peaked at when what was it, when Trump was visiting the Fed and they had the hard hats on. And
oh my gosh,
it was like an SNL skit.
That was great.
Too much.
All I'm saying is SNL this year is going to be chef's kiss.
All right, so I think we're doing a little bit of throwing a curveball here a little bit. We have an announcement that we want to make. I think it's going to result in Q and Isaiah hopping backstage for a second, and then we're going to bring up. I think we're bringing you guys back to talk more topics, but we are going to bring in Jan Pritzker. There's Jan. Look at that in
guys?
nature. Good to see
In
you, Jan.
nature. Get my son as was prescribed.
Awesome, awesome, man. Good. Glad you're here quickly, and we've got. You know what? I have a German background, and I'm struggling with this one. Schnurz.
Schnurz.
Okay, it's kind of
Schnurz.
Schnurz. Okay, I really should be better with that one. But no, great.
That's actually like a fantasy name. It's not like my real name, so no problem.
Gotcha. Okay, well, great to have you on here. I'll just give a little quick intro for both of you, but before I even do that, I'll say kind of why we're doing this. So Swan, if anyone's familiar with like the world of self-custody and different tools such as software wallets to do that, you're probably familiar with Spectre Desktop. And Swan has recently transitioned the ownership of the Spectre open source project to a new entity, which is going to be the Spectre Association. So that includes things like brand rights, GitHub, the website, public channels. The whole idea here is to make sure that Spectre remains, usable, valuable to the community, but also open and verifiable. And Jan and Schnurz are going to talk about this stuff. Jan's super quick intro is that he's the co-founder and CTO of Swan. You guys probably follow him on Twitter and probably know him. You've probably seen or hopefully read his book, Inventing Bitcoin. And that's what I'll say about Jan. And Schnurz, I'll allow you to give a little bit of your background, but you are going to be the leader of the Spectre Association. I saw you did a video on this week. That was well done by you. So from there, we'll go to a few questions here. So Jan, do you want to kind of give us a little bit more background on this? Why do you think now was the right time to make this move? And a little bit more about the impetus for it. And what does it mean for different parts of the community, whether it's builders or contributors or the users of these tools?
Yeah, thanks, John, and great to be here. We're very grateful for Spectre, the Spectre team letting us take care of this project for a few years. So we actually came into the space, I think it was in 2022, at that time looking to build a collaborative multi-custody solution for Swan. So this is today known as Swan Vault. So it means you can have two keys that you have in your possession. You have full sovereignty. You can move the funds whenever you want. We have the third key as a backup. We cannot move the funds at all. So this solution, a 2 of 3 multi-sig, was something we wanted to build. And we were looking at the landscape of projects that were out there that could potentially be bootstrapped for us to help us build out the technology. And we've been close to the Spectre guys for a long time. Moritz and Kim and all the original sort of people who worked on Spectre. And we thought that there was a really good fit for us to acquire the company. At that time, it was not an open source. Well, it was an open source project, but it was not managed by an open source association. It was managed by an actual company. So we ended up acquiring the company and the team. And we essentially had sort of a dual mandate. One was to improve Spectre, make it more usable, more user-friendly, expand its capabilities, and build out the Swan Vault, which would be a 2 of 3 multi-sig project, where the Swan Vault would remain a corporate product, even though it is full self-custody or full self-sovereign custody for the client. But we would have a path from Swan Vault into Spectre as people kind of leveled up and decided, hey, we want to have a full control. We want to run our own node. We want to run our own software. We want to control everything. And so that was the path that we decided on, was to build Swan Vault as the corporate product and keep Spectre as an open source product that would end up being sort of a recovery system for Swan Vault and a step up to people who are ready to take that step into full self-sovereignty. And that worked really, really well. We invested a lot of time improving Spectre's usability, invested a ton of time in fixing bugs, improving support for Blockstream Jade and things like that. And we ended up building Swan Vault, which has been very successful and loved by our customers, so we're very grateful for that team to help us bootstrap that project. Of course, over time, we decided we wanted to focus more and more on the Vault aspects, and it made sense to get more involvement from the community to help with Spectre. And Schnurz stepped up to the plate along with lots of other folks. It's really exciting to actually have, he can talk about the association and who's involved, but it's really great to have all these people who were the original guys who worked on Spectre DIY and the Spectre desktop, and that group has just grown since that time. And so we're very excited to hand it over, and feel like this is the time for us to really give back to the open source community. And now it's in a format that really makes sense with no nonprofit association and a board. And I've joined the board actually to also help steer the project to some degree. So I'll hand it over to Schnortz to talk about the association.
Yeah, Schnortz, if you could also just give a little background on yourself, I think people would love to hear it. And I'll just make the super quick comment that I have used Spectre myself. Not only that, but I have walked through a few clients who are using Swan Vault, and they want to see what is this recovery. They're not planning to need it because they're not expecting Swan to go away, but they want to know if this were to happen, how would I use Spectre? So I've walked through it with a few of them. Some of them are into their 50s or 60s, and they're still able to handle it no problem. So Spectre has been great, and I look forward to it improving in the future. But yeah, Schnortz, if you give a little background on yourself and then more about what you think this whole announcement means, that would be great.
Yeah, so I'm Schnurz. I got an opportunity very early to in my youth to get my pocket money in Bitcoin, and then I got down into the rabbit hole, and yeah, then I started selling Spectre hardware wallets in my online shop ClaverStack, and yeah, it was in my youth, and then I sold a couple of them. And I made a couple of content for desktop and Spectre DIY hardware wallet to use it in German for the 21 YouTube channel in German. And yeah, then meanwhile, Swan bought Spectre, and yeah, I continued selling these hardware wallets because everything was open source. Everyone could sell them. And yeah, then I continued my journey, posting more content. And then what happened is that maybe half a year ago, Crypto Guide, because there are different types of Spectre DIY hardware wallets. On the one hand, we have the normal simple one, and the other hand, we have a version which offers smart card support. And then one of the community made the Shield light board. This is this one here, available again. And then we saw, the community is very alive, and because it was always alive, there was something happening in the Telegram channels, but this was a huge new invention. And then he made even a cheaper one, that was the Crypto Guide. And then yeah, we started moving the Spectre project a little bit forward in the background. And yeah, then Swan, they focused more on the collaborative custody and already finished this product. And then they gave us the opportunity to just make the work at Spectre even better, so that we have with this Spectre association, we are 9 members. So I'm the president. We have also Mike, who was the right hand from Stepan Snigirev, the main developer. He is Stepan Snigirev is now honorary member, with Morris Vitersheim, who was the initial founder from Spectre as well. He's now honorary member of as well. And now we have a new leaderboard with like I said, Mike, who's vice president, and Crypto Guide, who's board of members, and Jan even joined as well, who already talked about himself, and now he's gone. And yeah, then we have a couple.
I'm still here, but something happened to my camera.
We can hear you.
Then we have another couple of great members in our association who are already always supporting Spectre, and we are planning to get more people into the Spectre association who want to support the project on maybe development, pushing the project on marketing, for example, or making like workshops, or however you want to like help to grow the project, you can like come to us, and you can like just start from now, like start now, get yourself a Spectre, check out the website. We even made a new website for the announcement. You can check it out. And yeah, if you want to help us make this hardware wallet or the software wallet better, then of course you can always like start. It's everything open source. You can make a pull request, like make issues if you want to improve something, and yeah, you can help us and maybe even get part of our association.
Fantastic. Thank you for the overview. So maybe if you guys, I think it's now clear what the kind of motivation was behind this and what the changes are that are happening from a from a governance perspective. Can you guys talk a little bit about maybe some of the near-term goals, whether it's like on the UX side of things, documentation, or getting people, new contributors, things like that, and then longer term, is there a vision for what Spectre becomes as like a self-custody project within the Bitcoin ecosystem?
So obviously we don't have like a roadmap or something. We are not a centralized company. We are like an association, and everyone who has like good ideas can go out and like start ideas, like code it like yourself. Like the cases, all the cases are all made from the community. Like this here, then we have this here. It's also a member of the community. The barebone case, everything is made from the community. And this is like how we want to evolve the project, that people with great ideas come and implement their great ideas into Spectre Desktop or the hardware wallet or whatever they want to like improve. And this is how the project grows. And one thing is that Mike is currently like changing a little bit, bringing the software like up to date, the back end, the very back end. And then after that, it's going to be much easier for developers to contribute to the hardware wallet. This is one thing. And then, yeah, we are thinking about maybe like another case, or there are a couple of people with great ideas.
Excellent. Jan, if you want to add anything to that, please do. Also, just a little more, if you, excuse me, if you want to expand, Jan, on your role personally within this, that would be interesting to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very excited to see where it goes. And like Snort said, it's not a centralized company, so it's kind of a little different, right? Under Swan, we had specific goals. We wanted to improve the user experience. We spent a lot of time doing that. We wanted to improve some of the hardware support. I believe the association, has a lot of different talent, a lot of hardware talent as well, which is really cool to see more development in the hardware space. I think we're still very early in the space of hardware wallets, and there always could be better and more tools for people to use. So I'm very excited to see more developments on that front. And especially with, regards to giving developers a way to tinker with things and build their own things and experiment. I think that's actually a really awesome initiative, because it frankly, that's how we're going to get new products. And I think we're very early in the space of hardware wallets, where a lot of people still, are scared of them, or think they're difficult to use. But the Spectre DIY is actually quite great, and the UI of the Spectre DIY, very few people I feel like know that it's actually pretty awesome. It's got a touch screen. It's really nice. It's got a good user experience. So excited to see more there. And yeah, as far as my role in the association, we have a board, and the board decides on sort of formal things, approvals of how the association is run, things like that. So I'll be kind of there to make sure that their transition from Swan to this association is smooth, and ensure that the handover of the assets is correct, and make sure that the governance is good, and that we're doing the best things that we can for the open source community. Ultimately, this is an open source project, and we want to, that's our customer. So it's a very different model from a a corporate model where you have your point is to make money. Here, the point is really to enable the open source community to thrive, ensure we have good governance around, what kind of changes go in, what kind of changes don't go in. So yeah, excited to help out in whatever ways I can there.
Awesome. Hurley, do you think I'm missing anything critical here?
We just got a comment here that asking for links to, they want to know about hardware recommendations for Spectre, links to easy ways to get started, or maybe how to contribute.
Yeah, we made like we said, we made a new website, and on the website there we made like an overview, a build guide with all the different variations of the Spectre hardware wallet. So you can have a shopping list there. You can just click the links, what you need to build the hardware wallet together. And we have like a manual for every different variation of the hardware wallet to put it together, and then you can build your own hardware wallet. And if you don't want this, we also have we have a vendor page with vendors who sell the hardware wallets, like the parts, because like a couple of parts are not that easy as a private person to get, because these 2 parts are like from the factory. The other stuff are off-the-shelf components. You can just buy this from normal online shops. And of course, yeah, you need a 3D printed case, but you can, like, if you have a printer, you can print it. If you know someone with a printer, he can print it, or you find a case in one of the online shops. And yeah, so you can check out the part lists and the online shops. In my online shop, there's also like a full, you can build, buy it like as a assembling kit, and have you of all the parts. You can just start, or a pre-assembled, and like there are other online shops too. You can check this out on the vendor page. We'll link this in the description.
It's spectre.solutions, right? Is where all the information.
Spectre.solutions,
Great.
exactly.
Awesome. Well, we thank you so much for what you're doing for Bitcoin and self-custody and for the open source community. Yeah, it's exciting stuff.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you coming on, and looking forward to seeing how Spectre develops going forward.
All right, guys. See ya. All right, shall we bring up Isaiah back? Isaiah, and let's see how these guys are backstage. What are you guys doing back there?
They're debating medium exchange versus store value.
For sure.
No, I'm trying to negotiate another fantasy football deal.
Yeah, I guess. Do you want to go into the fees being down? I know there's a lot of people screaming from the rooftops again that fees are. Oh, look at that! Someone's gone in the camera up there.
You kicked me off, Hurley. It's okay.
You turned into a chart.
I see how you really feel about me.
Yeah. So this is fees are apparently. I saw this. I had to reread it. Fees are the lowest they've been since 2011. It said. Is that transaction fees on the Bitcoin network? Is that legitimate? That seems crazy.
Yeah, looks like it. I think this is one of these topics that could be super long to cover. We'll probably just keep it as a quick hit. The haters will say, oh, this is the security budget. Bitcoin is doomed. It's going to be taken over, 51% attack, blah, blah, blah. I think Pierre Rochard is probably the best, most coherent voice. And he actually takes the time to respond to all those haters. So would highly recommend his Twitter feed if you want to see like long form responses. But to me, the biggest takeaway, the biggest response is that this is a dynamic, it's a market. The fees are as a function of supply and demand, and it's a moving target as well. So if there is like a hostile environment because someone is accused of censoring transactions or attempting to do a 51% attack, then people can pay more to get their transactions in the block. The attack becomes that much harder to persist. So that is kind of the response to the attack. If the fees are very low, that doesn't mean there's some sort of crisis for Bitcoin. It means that there's not a huge demand to get fees, get transactions on chain immediately. And that's what it's a reflection of. Maybe it's because it's August, maybe because it's treasury companies, maybe because it's people are not using it to buy cups of coffee. I think that's all okay. None of this spells an existential crisis in Bitcoin, in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people that panic about it too are looking out like, I mean, it's fine. You want people to look out 100 and whatever, 20 years in the future when there is no more Bitcoin to be mined and the network and the miners are funded by transaction fees alone. But I mean, I feel like there's just so many things like in 100 years, like, I mean, how cheap how cheap and abundant will energy be in order to mine? You know what I mean? It's like we think about it in today's age with how, how the price of energy and mining and just the way that the industry is now. But I just feel like there's going to be so many things that change. And yeah, I mean, and I think it kind of plays into obviously the store of value and payments piece of it too, because people obviously want Bitcoin to be money and be cash and be used for coffees, but if the 99.9 or whatever it is, 99.5 at least % of the world doesn't see it as a viable store of value that's going to stick around, even then they're not going to accept it as payment, or they're not going to pay for a coffee with it, right? So and I think that goes into what you said here, John, your kind of semi-viral tweet, which I completely believe with. I don't know if you want, or agree with. I don't know if you want to go through this a little bit.
Yeah. So my take is basically, and this started because there was some guy named Robin Linus who's definitely more technically savvy in the Bitcoin world than I ever will be, but he was kind of weighing into what I would say is more economics of Bitcoin and like intentions of Bitcoin. I purposefully didn't mean the pun there, but I purposefully used his words, which were primary purpose. And he said the primary purpose for Bitcoin is payments. And when I hear payments, I hear medium of exchange. To me, those are effectively synonymous. People who want to debate semantics might say they're different, but that's effectively what people are getting at when they say payments, right? It's me buying a beer. That's medium of exchange. And I think it just, to say that that's the primary purpose of Bitcoin, misunderstands a few things that are true, whether you like it or not. And that's what the 3 bullets are here, which is that pretty much the whole planet has a store of value problem because of inflation. Developed countries, all 4 of us, I don't think have payments problems. I don't know the last time that I had a payment problem from a tech perspective. Credit cards do work pretty well. They even have like fraud protection, and you can call them up and say, hey, someone did this and, reverse my transaction. That's pretty nice. In general, developed countries are not censoring people. I know there's stories of this happening. It does happen from time to time, but it's not something that massive parts of the population are dealing with, at least for now, thankfully. And then lastly, the people who maybe are in a developed, like authoritarian country, a lot of times they just won't want to use Bitcoin because it's either too volatile or it's just too new for them. And if they're living hand to mouth, paycheck to paycheck, it's really hard to convince them and say, hey, use this brand new asset on your phone that like you don't understand, and you're going to put, your, what is their life savings into it. So putting all that together, I think store of value is what the vast majority of people are going to use Bitcoin for at this point in time. That doesn't mean I'm against Bitcoin being used for payments. I've gone to Pubkey in New York and bought burgers and a beer with Bitcoin. I'm not trying to steer anyone away from doing that. I'm just saying, based on the starting point of what Bitcoin is today and what fiat allows us to do, most people are not going to widely use it for payments today. I think it comes further down the road. But this is a huge debate. People get like very, very passionate about this one on Twitter. And I think it's a debate that's going to be with us forever, or until hyper Bitcoinization. What do you guys think?
I was just going to say it'll be with us until it's no longer a debate and it's just like what we do. I think, to your point, all of us on this, as well as I would say everyone watching, maybe 1 or 2 people watching or listening, are not in that place of financial privilege where, there's an ATM everywhere and every single credit card in your wallet is accepted anywhere you go. I think right now we're still very much in that price discovery, store of value moment of the iterations of money. And I think something more drastic is going to happen for it to make that shift to a medium of exchange. And whether I think it's more than just, more and more people just want the Bitcoin, so they'll sell their goods or services and want to receive Bitcoin instead of dollars. I think it will have to be something of the tune of, and I'm seeing this a little bit, I've brought this up a couple times, but I see a lot of smaller businesses offering cash discounts or even charging an extra charge for using a credit card. And I think there's going to be a little bit more education that's going to happen to start to have some of those small business owners learn and realize Bitcoin is an alternative to the credit card payment rail that we've become so accustomed to over the last 30 plus years. That shift is still going to be minuscule in comparison to the broader number of monetary transactions that happen on a daily basis, shifting from the dollar payment rails to a Bitcoin payment rail.
It's important to remember too that it already does function as both, right? Like it's like people seem to think like it's either or, and we're gonna have to, but it's like people that are arguing that they want it to primarily be a medium of exchange, but it already does work as a medium of exchange. If you need to, self-sovereignly send peer-to-peer money to someone across the world, Bitcoin works amazingly. It works perfectly. So it's like it already is working as both. I think there's a little bit of impatience on maybe it taking over as the main money for a lot of people. But I mean, I feel like that's just kind of skipping over a huge step of the monetization process, which we still need to kind of watch play out.
I also think, Hurley, to your point, like we were just talking about this with that bond and gold chart earlier, but whether we agree with it or not, for a long time, U.S. Treasuries, i.e. a U.S. dollar denominated asset, was used as a store of value. People were storing their wealth in a U.S. denominated debt treasury vehicle while still transacting in dollars every day. So that is a very natural byproduct of money to be both a store of value and medium of exchange at the same time.
Yeah. I know, Isaiah, you said you were tired of this debate a little bit, but maybe.
Yeah. Wait, what does Jack Dorsey have to say about it, though?
Well, I think he said that, or I said, there's coming Square terminals very soon, whatever soon is, right? Like it's soon. No, I think Hurley's take is my take. It is both. Roy from Breeze, which is a Lightning wallet, and they do some cool stuff. Hey, wrote a really good piece, and it was called Bitcoin's False Dichotomy Between Store Value and Medium of Exchange. And that's basically his argument. He outlines it really well. I'm just explaining what makes it a great store of value, also makes it like there's portions that make Bitcoin a great medium of exchange. It has both and it needs both. And like, just quit arguing. It is both things. So that is the cliff notes of a really good piece. But that's one that I'll highlight when people have questions.
Yeah, I think we'll look back and chuckle at that this was such a debate at some point, though, because it's like, because money historically, when it was gold, it was a store of value and it was a medium of exchange. It was both. But I think it's like we're so used to our fiat money now just serving one function, and then we've like kind of placed cash in that like realm as well. And a lot of people that are super pro medium of exchange will look at the white paper and how Satoshi used the term cash. But like, if you actually look at what cash is supposed to mean, it's supposed to be a bearer instrument that you can trade with someone peer-to-peer, right? So it's like, it doesn't necessarily, it was a storage of cash, I think, originally in the original Latin or whatever it was, right? So it's like, I think our fiat money has more muddied the waters of what money should be than anything else. And that's kind of where the confusion comes in a lot of the place.
Absolutely.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
All right, we're basically at time here. Do we want to do one more quick hit? I'm looking at the list.
We could do a bullish thing. There's like, this Bitwise, since we're, everyone's.
Oh yeah, we got to do that. We got to do that.
We got Bitwise's Bitcoin valuation framework. So they got a bear case of 88,000 in 2035, but then their base is 1.3 million, and their bull is almost 3 million, $2.976 million. So, I mean, I think their bear case is way off, but
I think Peter Schiff wrote that one in for him. Honestly. Like, it makes no sense. It doesn't track with anything else on that. It's so out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Maybe we round it out with the U.S. government taking an Intel stake. That's, on the face of it, it's not directly related to Bitcoin, but it did lead to some speculation of, is this setting the stage for the U.S. Targeting, taking an ownership stake, or just outright buying the whole thing of like MSTR? That it spurred that speculation. I will give my take, and I want to hear your guys' take on the Intel stuff. I don't welcome the news. I'm definitely a limited government proponent, have been for a long time, and this doesn't change that. But I will also acknowledge reality, and the starting point is that, like the CHIPS Act, for example, that already gives a company like Intel and many others a whole bunch of money. It gives them a whole bunch of mandates of what they must do. And there's also a ton of restrictions of what they cannot do. So the starting point is not free market capitalism. The government's not involved in anything and, doesn't tell people what to do and doesn't give anyone money. The starting point is that they do a tremendous amount of it. I think what the current administration is saying is that, okay, we're going to do that and we're going to take a stake in the company and we're going to do it for national security reasons. That's their defense. And I will also say that using national security as a defense, it can be abused very badly. So I'm not saying that that's just, oh, they said national security, we should just, move on. On the Bitcoin side of things, I personally think it is way too early for the US government to do something like take a stake in MicroStrategy or take them over entirely, because I feel like it sends a signal to the rest of the world that they're not willing to send at this point in time. I think we're still years away from them doing that, because once they send that kind of signal, I feel like then it's game on. And I hope we have strategic enough people in the administration that realize that. And I just think we're not at the point in Bitcoin's life where that happens. I still think it's years away. But what's your guys' take on either the Intel news or potential implications for strategy and Bitcoin?
I think it was a bad deal for the U.S., isn't it? I mean, Intel's a struggling company. I don't think they're very profitable.
They're like the worst chip manufacturer across the board right now, or have been for the last like 6-7 years.
Yeah,
Trump's a value investor. You gotta buy into the weakness.
Yeah,
I think the perspective on it, and I need to read up a little bit more on this, was like, this is a US company, which is why it was prioritized. So like on that basis, okay, fine. And I know that there's been a lot of conversation around like creating a sovereign wealth fund and investing in public market type of companies and getting a stake in US founded companies, which the theory and thesis should be beneficial for the US economy and US citizens as a whole. That said, John, like when you were talking about like the justification of using national security to make these type of actions, that's the same justification that was used to take everyone's gold. That was the same justification we used to create the Patriot Act. Like these justifications, like they sound really good when you first hear them, but then when we start to unpack the net result years down the line, it's like we lost freedoms for it. I do think that this opens the door. I think it was Isaiah or Hurley, one of you guys in the chat was bringing up this. This is also potentially for Bitcoin mining, and a company like Marathon could just absolutely get railroaded by something like this. I don't think any of these companies, be it MicroStrategy, Marathon, Intel, they ever founded or took their position and did what they were doing with an eye on, well, one day the US government is going to like backstop us and take a stake in us to guarantee, all right, well, the government's going to buy this portion, and if the price goes a little lower, they'll buy a little bit more to keep our valuation at a certain level. I think that has never been the intention of any company's founder, and if it is, that's quite moronic. But I think the Pandora's box that this opened, I'm more interested to see what the next types of deals look like.
I don't like it. It's not free and open markets. We haven't had free and open markets for a while. It's unfortunate. Yeah, it's not capitalism, but I don't think I've seen true capitalism since I've been alive.
no.
Yeah, it's gross. I don't like it. That's my thought.
Yeah, that's Adam in the chat. Socialism much? Yeah, that's kind of, it's not a good precedent to set. And yeah, that's a good point. We have not seen true free market capitalism in our lifetime. I try to tell that to people because a lot of people, that's one of the most frustrating aspects I find about Bitcoin, is a lot of people that are frustrated with the wealth gap and affordability, and they're like, oh, it's capitalism, and like they've somehow been brainwashed into thinking it's capitalism. It's like, we don't live in a capitalistic society because our money centrally controlled, right? So it's like that was probably one of the biggest mind-blowing moments for me going down the rabbit hole, was realizing that we don't live in a capitalist society at all, right? It's crony capitalism, and it's socialism for the rich, really. And that's what Bitcoin will hopefully fix, right?
The irony also of this happening under the president who was like so anti-socialism, calling out Bernie Sanders for being a socialist, and then he himself creating socialist policies. Just again, the best TV on earth right now.
Yeah.
So, all right, we're gonna wrap it up there, basically. But Q, if you want to say how excited you are for BTC and DC after I explain it, please do, because that was before we got on air. It was your genuine excitement. But before that, I'm going to give a quick shout out to Mara. They are a supporter of the show, and Mara is one of the world's largest Bitcoin miners. They are the largest publicly traded Bitcoin miner. They support the show. They help make Bitcoin the world's most decentralized and secure monetary network. So thank you to Mara. And BTC and DC, it's coming up. This is one of those things where in my head, I was like, oh, end of September, October, that's like so far away, because it was when I first heard about it. And now it's like a month away. So it's coming up. It is September 30th and October 1st. It's going to be a great event. Bitcoiners, obviously, lawmakers, different speakers in the space, all going to be in Washington, D.C. So you can literally meet people who are helping shape Bitcoin's future on Capitol Hill. Website is btcindc.com. You can use a code SWAN for 10% off your ticket. Again, September 30th and October 1st. Go to btcindc.com and you can get 10% off with the code SWAN. And Q, tell us why you're so excited to go to DC.
Honestly, there's just so much drama going on right now. I think it's gonna be spicy. It's going to be very spicy in DC.
We're going to watch someone get fired from their role in person in real time.
I want any speaker who gets a phone call, any political speaker who gets a phone call must answer it on speaker while speaking on the stage. I said speak a lot. So if you followed me, great. But yeah, no, I'm excited. It'll be fun. Plus,
Are all three of you going?
I'll be there. Yeah.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
Look forward to your keynote speech, John.
It's going to be me ripping into MMTers. All right, guys, let's wrap it up there. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in this Friday before Labor Day. So I'm sure people are hopefully at the beach, heading to the beach, getting some outdoor time, and have a great long weekend, everyone. Hit us up, DM me, Isaiah, or Q if you want to learn more about Swan as a company and Swan Private. Our DMs are open, and we'll be back at it next week. We'll have Brady on next. I think we have Brady on next week.
Yeah, Brady's going to be calling from Brandon's place, right? He'll be
from his basement.
In his basement, yeah.
Right. Okay, so we get Brady back next week, and until then, have a great weekend, guys. Thanks for joining.
Have a good weekend, guys.